up, good movie lovers? We've just seen Judge Dredd in 3D. Jonas. All right, that's good. We got the take. It's good. We got the take. He's on slow-mo.
This new drug, man, it's called bullet time. It'll blow your mind wide open.
What if, like, that stuff in the Matrix and 300? What if that was a drug?
You put an inhaler and came out in 3D.
Best idea ever for justification of a film technique.
Of a film technique. Slow.
Mo. You experience reality at 1% of the time. How long does it last? I mean, a minute high would be like what? Like, is that like Inception?
And what if you take another hit?
Double dose?
Oh my god, I don't even think about it.
So that would be 1% of 1%.
Now we're talking exponential
I
shit.
mean, whatever.
This is possibly the worst sci-fi drug since Nuke.
RoboCop 2 Nuke.
With like little cassette tape?
Yeah. Pain.
Which is, let's program the robot cop with the firepower to be hooked on drugs.
Yeah. Thankfully,
Makes
Judge
sense.
Dredd's logic is relatively pretty flawless for what he wants to
It's pretty
accomplish,
sound,
right?
yeah, which is basically the walking stubble chin. That is Judge Stubble Chin. All you see is this. This is all the character is. This is all you get. And every line is, where we going? Up.
Just when you thought that the one-liner, the era of the one-liner, died with everybody from the Expendables.
Right.
This character kind of justifies
but it's
it.
not a one-liner. It's just the way he says it. But it's like, wait for what?
Yeah.
Wait for you to tell me this. Wait for blah blah. And then she shoots him, and then it's like, wait for her to shoot you.
Right.
That's not lines.
The reason we remember some of the lines in the classic 80s films is because they were true to character, and they just kind of came out of the moment, and it became a one-liner.
Yeah.
So Judge Dredd is kind of like a one-line delivery machine.
But none of them are funny. It's just like, what are you eating? Pie. Judgment. Delicious.
And if you do a close-up of the stubble and this.
It's like, what are you eating? Pie. Let's backtrack.
Okay, so the story of Judge Dredd.
Sci-fi dystopia. Kind of seems like a quasi-comment on totalitarianism, but they don't really get into that.
Right.
Like a really opportunity for like almost like a Paul Verhoeven-esque like satire, but they're not going to do that. They're not interested in doing that, and that's fine.
Because it's almost like the filmmakers said they bastardized Judge Dredd in 1995 with Sylvester Stallone.
And Armand Assante and Rob Schneider.
So we're going to do it right.
Right.
We're going to go back to the comics, which is from like 1976 it started. Got popular in the 80s, the Anthrax song, I Am the Law.
Anthrax, I Am the Law.
Listen to it right now, I Am the Law.
Put the link on there.
Amazing song. It'll be linked. But the basic idea is that in the future, nuclear war zone everywhere in America pretty much, fallout everywhere. And there's a stretch of land that still exists that's habitable, and 800 million people live there.
Mega city.
Mega city. So you get mega apartment buildings, mega highways.
Right, and each mega apartment building basically houses like almost an entire, 75,000 people living in one, right?
Because there's so many people and so much chaos, you don't have time for the judicial system to work. So you appoint police officers as judge, jury, and executioner.
Or as they phrase the movie, jury, executioner, and judge.
So within that milieu, that's even intimidating right there. Just do anything. Do anything. Drink a hot chocolate.
Coffee. Good.
Threatening
so
coffee
badass.
drink ever.
If all you see is this, the whole thing reminded me of RoboCop the entire time because he has no emotion.
That's like RoboCop is influenced by Judge Dredd and then Dirty Harry. This is Dirty Harry in the future, basically. You could see a young Clint Eastwood be in this guy. So within Mega City, there's crime and all this. So basically, we follow Judge Dredd on one of his busts.
Right.
And it so happens to kind of be like the plot of The Raid Redemption, but we don't mind that because it's set in the future. And he has to take down a drug dealer, drug queenpin, who's played by like Heidi Fleiss to the crackhead extreme. You know, she's like a murderous kind of. Look up Heidi Fleiss on Google.
Way back.
That's a very
when,
90s reference.
Are we that old?
We're that knowledgeable and experienced and wise.
If we make a reference to New Jack City, will people acknowledge
this the kind of is New Jack City at the same
exactly.
time. What were you expecting from Judge Dredd going in?
Going in, I was seeing with the preview, and the preview was amazing. The preview was just like super ultra heavy hyper-violence with the crazy bullet time.
And sometimes you're in the mood for that, right?
Hey, definitely. I will definitely be in the mood for that sometimes. So, yeah, it delivered. It was
delivered, right?
Explosions and hyper-violent. Oh, really violent. Because especially you've got the crazy slow-mo and like literally bullets ripping through people's faces, chunks flying off, and like explosions, and it's a cool effect because it looks beautiful in the 3D especially, and the digital cinematography. I mean, it's gorgeous.
It was an absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, all those shots were just like
the scene, just in the scene where she's just in the bathwater playing with the evil queen pin. Hey,
okay?
You were doing great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, there's that show on like either the Science Channel or History.
Yeah.
Where they would slow everything down.
Right. When you see everything, like you see the bullet. There's that famous one of the bullet ripping through the balloon or whatever.
Right. In the 70s, overpopulation was a major concern. Soylent Green. I think there was a book called The Population Bomb, and that seemed to influence this idea of like this. What would happen if there were 800 million of us? And so maybe
trapped in a small space, basically. Yeah.
And what if maybe the mundane would become magical in a very, I don't know, Buddhist or mystical kind of way. That's the only thing this drug does. The only side effect? It makes the world beautiful.
Exactly.
That's illegal.
That's illegal, right? That is
like, can you imagine that?
Like, why it's illegal? Like, why is it? Yeah, it's all it does is just like. I mean, I guess they're kind of high, also, I suppose. But
we just found the flaw in this film because what they want to stop the criminals from robbing, from killing, from
right.
But so the drug really doesn't hurt anybody.
In fact, it makes them do nothing. But still, you think they'd be piping this stuff into the vents?
It's like LSD weed.
They're not interested in doing that with this movie. They do not look into any kind of the society, the dystopia. We were talking about this. They could have gone that route.
Right.
If they wanted to, they could have taken a very interesting dissection of this future world they've created with the megalopolis and the I am the law, the one man, and what that means.
What it means to be just one man judge, jury, executioner.
And what that means for him as a person.
Right.
They didn't do that, and that's fine because they didn't want to do that. That wasn't what this movie was about. This movie was an excuse for bad acidness.
This was the most beautiful slow-mo you're ever going to see.
Beautiful to
And
watch.
it made death a ballet in a lot of ways.
It really did. Yeah.
Like when they bust into that room with the drug dealers and like everyone's on it, so you take their perspective. And when you switch to the cops' perspective, it's regular time.
Yeah.
And you see the shots coming in, and you see them getting hit and dying.
Yeah, and again, the faces just being ripped apart.
And it makes it less threatening in a way. It's a meditation on death almost. Yeah. But you don't feel like you want to see that all the time. And they do it enough where it's not too gratuitous.
It's not too gratuitous, yeah. Now, I could have used a little more, not of the bullet time violence, but there's that one scene, we're not getting into too many spoilers here, but where Psychic Cop...
Yeah.
That's not a spoiler. They reveal that she's psychic right in the beginning. Where Psychic Cop all of a sudden decides that she's going to be an ass kicker now at the end. And she like blows... She like goes and then blows the guy's face off.
Like, literally like...
explodes him.
Everywhere.
And it wasn't slow-mo, it was real time. And I wanted more of that stuff. Like, that was fun.
And her powers were cool. I like Psychic Girls using like kind of the camera effect.
Right.
And then I wish they would have used her even more.
That's my problem with Psychic Girl, who again it shows her character is like
she basically looks like Mila Jovovich. It's Resident Evil.
Yeah, she
Resident
looks like
Evil
Yeah, it looks like that character. Yeah, Alice.
That's not an accident. Just like Abraham Lincoln looks like Taken and Taken 2.
Like she has that whole thing with the guy
in his mind. And
right.
That was cool.
Well, why doesn't she just do that all the time?
Yeah. Like they're coming at it. Like when they captured her, why didn't she just
all of a sudden like boom, like psychic powers,
like scan her, that blood can explode? Yeah, like nose starts bleeding. She's just like doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but no, none of that. She just gets captured. So. Yeah. That was a little upsetting to me. I don't like when they don't play by their own rules. You know?
Or he's out of bullets and he kills guys, and then again he walks past the guns.
Right.
So he's Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
I gotta use my gun.
Right.
But if you go into this movie expecting really great, amazing bullet time effects.
Right.
Really gory, gratuitous deaths.
Again, I'll use the term hyperviolence.
Hyperviolence.
I think that sums up pretty well.
Hyperviolence. Yeah. And if you expect a pretty bare bones story, but a reason for a lot of good action sequences.
Right.
Like, okay, we got them trapped on the floor. Let's just, Predator had one minigun. Let's have three of them.
Yeah.
and let's just tear up the whole floor. Like,
Which was so. She just ends up killing all these people,
Like-
and this is guys. When Judge is he's just running, and he's just somehow dodging past it.
yeah.
And this is the thing. This movie just so bordered on self-parody, like so close.
Yeah.
Because again, you get these shots of this total just like literally, he was doing this sometimes.
Yeah.
Like just
or like when the kids had the guns and he's like, why? Because they say freeze, hold it. Why? Why should I freeze? And then he became RoboCop in Part 2 when they reprogrammed him,
yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, that's it. I mean, he even says, like, we were joking, like, you have 10 seconds to comply, which is Ed 209, not RoboCop,
Yeah.
but still. He was so goofy as a character, but I can't complain about that because that's Judge Dredd, right? Judge Dredd is not a flushed out three-dimensional like character with a lot of emotional backstory, is
Right.
he? He's this badass.
I never
and
read the
that's-
comics like later in the 80s.
Yeah.
I read some of the originals and they were like 7-page just really quick stories. Like
Okay.
Judge Dredd, here's a problem, he goes and solves it, and he almost has like a little after school message at the end.
Okay.
You never get into his character.
Don't do slow-mo.
Don't do slow-mo. Judge Dredd, he's very much a symbol here. He's not a person.
Right.
Everyone else, even the crooked cops or anyone else in the film, had motivation. You
Right.
know, in movies where the opponent tells you why they're doing what they're doing,
Right.
you root against them harder because you understand what the whole thing's about.
Right.
Instead of like, I'm just like the dude in the sunglasses and a gun. You know, it's just kind of like a cliche character. Wait,
Who is that?
that reminds us of someone who makes it more dramatique. Jean-Claude Van Damme. Don't challenge Judge Dredd. So the early comics by no means were any kind of like deep exploration.
Right.
But they were really interesting because they were a cornucopia of sci-fi and fantasy ideas.
Yeah.
Androids, robots, cybernetics, drugs, overpopulation, virtual reality, like everything is in those comics. There's so much to play with Judge Dredd. And the whole notion is like, I am a one-man law. So almost by required definition in science fiction, you have to explore that now, you know?
It could have gone, like that scene where he's dealing with the dirty cop and asks him, like, you get this idea of why Judge Dredd is just kind of disgusted with dirty cops and everything.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of get this window of, like, this is how he's holding on to his sanity of, like, in this complete dystopia where everything is, like he says, a meat grinder. And it's just, there's no, what is even the point of what they're doing? Like, they are able to deal with, 6% of what the actual crime rate is.
Yeah, and
You
that
know?
Peach Tree's the building.
Right.
96% unemployment.
Right.
So it's like, what are you going to do with your life if you can't work?
Yeah, exactly.
They don't
And
really go into it.
Right. And so that's kind of like how he deals with it himself, is this whole I am the law persona. Now, this is all my personal conjecture and pushing this onto the movie. They don't put that out there.
Yeah.
They don't even really hint at. This is kind of what I'm pulling from it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't.
But they do this really
I know.
interesting thing where it's like, you have a character who literally is impenetrable emotionally.
Yes.
And
that's
you
his
give him the
definition.
partner who is the only partner who could potentially get in there.
Yeah.
And you don't do anything with it.
No, they
you
choose
do a
not
hint
to.
at the beginning.
At the beginning.
And it's almost like the screenwriters came in and were like, in a rewrite, they said, no, let's not go there. Let's just keep it more like,
I appreciate they didn't, because I was, that's what the thing, I was really almost getting, I was just this close to, when they open, when they're in the thing, and she's like doing the reading from behind the glass, like, but I sensed something else. Some sort of, like, and everybody's like,
his parents were killed innocently, or
childhood pain, or like he's carrying around some weight of trauma. And I'm so
there's
glad-
like an image of him like above his parents, like Batman, like, where is the law? I will become the law.
And I'm so glad they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad they didn't. They could have gotten so hack.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, but let's say, what if there's Batman Begins, but you take away all the emotional parts of Batman? What if
Right.
you just make him like, parents are dead, I'm going to become a Batman, I'm going to kill everyone, and I'm not going to talk to Alfred about anything, no one's going to, and there's not going to Rachel Dawes, and no one's going to know anything about me, because I'm Batman, and Judge Dredd, look at this, I can do it too.
That's why in the comics I have the white slits. It's much more threatening when you can't see my eyes. Also, in RoboCop, when Murphy gets to lose the faceplates,
Yeah.
not as scary, not as badass.
Well,
So,
you know,
like,
but
he's kind of badass. He's got the giant, just like
Yeah.
wires coming from his head.
But notice
It's
what
really
Verhoeven
creepy.
did. Even though it is a little bit hokey, he gives you that going through the house with the family memories.
Right, that's true.
And that makes you give a shit more about it.
That's true.
You know,
RoboCop is a person. Like,
so imagine if it was just like, we don't know anything about him, gets shot up, becomes RoboCop.
Yeah.
Drop it. Take two.
Take two.
Drop it. You're coming with me. And you
Right.
don't ever know anything about who Murphy was. You lose the potential of human becomes cyborg, corporation, like all that stuff that is explored, but not... RoboCop doesn't explore too crazy, but it does enough.
It does enough, and what
Yeah.
made RoboCop one of my favorite science fiction movies of all time.
Right.
You know, as opposed to this, which was entertaining but completely forgettable.
Yeah.
Completely forgettable. There wasn't, aside from this really effing cool thing that happens at the end, which I don't want to spoil.
We're not gonna
spoil.
we're not
but,
gonna
like,
spoil that. It was awesome.
It's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll know it when it's about to happen. That's all
And you're
I'm
like,
saying.
is it really
Is
gonna happen?
And it kind of does.
It kinda does.
It's not as much as I wanted it to.
Right.
Or it's kind of
It chooses to be very artsy
about it, as opposed to when it. But there's that great moment where everyone in the audience was like,
Even though there were only like 6 of us in the theater because it was 10:45
on Sunday.
Yeah.
But you could feel it though.
You could feel like everyone was just like
we
no
were in
way.
slow mo.
Yeah.
So maybe the director's cut has.
It's like, here's the other take. So it
remember.
is better to leave the mask on the guy, right?
Yes.
And so if we think about other movie characters, Bane had this covered up.
Right.
And then V for Vendetta, probably the ultimate test.
Right.
Just a still image, the voice of Agent Smith.
Right.
And that came across. V for Vendetta is a great example of a movie that gets deep,
Yeah.
but explores like a fictional universe. It's action, it's
Yeah.
adventure, but it also isn't afraid to kind of like add some levels to
No,
things.
definitely not afraid to add levels. I just had a lot of trouble just with the Guy Fawkes mask. It was very hard for me to
Okay.
just keep watching that
Okay.
happen. Like to be that be the character.
Yeah.
So
even Darth Vader is another example of the
that
face. So
but that mask though looks cool.
and I always am gonna wish that it kind of explores things more.
Right.
I want like the layers,
Yeah,
I always
yeah,
want
yeah.
layers.
I don't do subtext.
It's better than the previous Judge Dredd.
Saying it's better than the previous Judge Dredd is like saying that blueberry pie, delicious blueberry pie, is better than shit on the floor. Saying the old Judge Dredd is like shit on the floor.
It's kind of like comparing the Dark Knight to Batman and Robin.
Right,
You kinda-
or a pile of shit on the floor. The only movie I have ever walked out on in the theaters.
Wow.
I sat through Lost in Space. Those of you under the age of 30
That says a lot.
may not remember a little movie called Lost in Space with Gary Oldman,
Matt LeBlanc.
Matt LeBlanc, Jennifer Love Hewitt, and then this horrible little CGI monkey named like Gleep Glop or something. Look it up. It's bad. It's
Okay.
It's
So you sat through that.
I sat through
but
that.
you walked out of.
I walked out on somewhere
Judge Dredd.
around Rob Schneider's like umpteenth spit take, whatever he
Okay.
was doing in that movie.
So should people see this at the theater, regular price matinee, or wait to see it at home? Beautiful 3D
Beautiful
for
3D
slow-mo
for slow-mo,
blood
all
and
that
all
stuff.
the stuff that was going
That was
on.
cool.
Very
The guy's
unique
face blew
experience.
up.
Yeah, I think the slow-mo effect is interesting enough that it should be seen. Add it to your cinematic library of memories.
Because this fits in somewhere around with. This is an extension of Bullet Time. This is an important movie in terms
Yeah.
of effects.
This would be one of the evolutionary cavemen.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
yeah. Like a little notch along the way.
Yeah,
like
it's
one of those
somewhere.
things. It was pretty cool. So yeah, if you're into that kind of thing, yeah, see it in the 3D.
A matinee 3D.
It was fun.
Remember it.
It was definitely. It's a good late night
Yeah.
stupid movie. Definitely.
It's time for Dredd to be judged.
Probably know that one hit from you is enough for anyone who's still moving. That would be called like,
They didn't charge me for my coffee.
like sometimes
So
Might be a little much with them doing this a lot, so cut some of these out. Like they're not all. These aren't all gems.
Put them all together.
These aren't all just-
That's gonna be like this is gonna be you at the end doing everything. Like
Matinee, 3D, bad acidness. I don't do subtext. Coffee, good. Pie, judgment, delicious. Is this right?
and go.
everything okay, guys?
Everything is great. Thank
Everything
you.
is good. Everything's good. All right, one more take. That's blooper. That's the end right there.